What up, punks?
Are we? Oh, we've started?
I think we're starting now.
official.
I'll get it cracking and then we'll go.
Okay.
One last sip.
Oh my god.
All right, everybody. What up, punks? Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and across from me is your boy,
Josh.
And this week with us, I'm tripping up on my words.
You're all nervous.
We have Troy and Dave from Imperius Rex again. It's almost a year later since we last had them.
1 year later.
1 year later.
How far we've come.
Hello,
boys. Hello.
Hello. How are those headphones this time?
They work, so they're great.
So they're good. Nice.
I feel like they could be better, Troy. Like if they weren't working, it would.
Yeah, I think
You want me to
my
just take these
enjoyment-
off and hold
Nah,
them?
you just hold them like
That's
last
what's
time.
missing.
What do I do with my hands?
Is that what you titled the last episode? Like, what
to do with your hands?
What
Absolutely.
to do with your hands?
Absolutely.
Hold these non-working headphones.
Hold these non-working
that's
headphones. Rule number
So
one.
it's been a year. How's the YouTube channel been going and all that jazz?
Oh man, thanks for asking.
Mm-hmm.
It's been growing quite a bit.
Yeah.
Good.
Somebody asked in the comments kind of about that, like not that long ago, and it's like, you guys are growing pretty quick. I'm like, well, it's like a more of a slow swelling than anything else, but thank you.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was when we chatted last. Did we hit 1,000? We didn't hit 1,000 yet.
You were
You're like
almost.
just
I think
shy.
you were almost there.
Just shy, yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yep.
Well, we've surpassed 1,000, which
Nice.
by normal YouTube standards isn't that impressive,
It's
but
nothing.
for
Hey, man.
for
Yeah.
these small groups out in the Midwest, I feel like, oh, that's pretty good, right?
That's a pretty solid number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Dope.
Yeah. So doing good. Thanks.
Yeah. And you guys have been doing a book club now, which
Yes.
is kind of cool.
That's new this year.
yeah, new this year. What made you guys kind of want to start that?
Dave, I'll let you take that.
What did make us want to do it? Well, we wanted to kind of bring the community in, try to get a little bit more like live feedback and interaction, and also wanted to do like a bit of a deeper dive on some of these books that we normally, like try to sum up in a half hour,
Yeah.
which is very difficult. Like
Yes,
right
it
now,
is.
we are doing Swamp Thing.
Nice.
Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, which is 6 volumes, and it's great. And we did an episode about it way back.
Yeah.
And we both like, that was not good,
I think it was still good.
It was fine. It's been keeping us up at night. Like, we have so much more to say. So,
Well, I think you guys have improved quite a bit since even when I first discovered you last year and watched some of your older stuff versus like what you're doing now. Like your analysis and discussion has gotten a lot more improved.
it depends how many beers we've had over the course of the episodes. But yeah, I mean, we've tried to kind of refine it a bit. There's shows that we're more proud of than others, but
I show up with notes sometimes.
yes,
so that's
that's
Nice.
that is a
That's the way to
difference.
do it.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the biggest challenge, at least for me, is trying to balance that line of just telling what happens in the book and giving like any criticism or critique on it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if it's a long run, I get like hung up on just saying, and then this happened, and then this happened.
Sure.
And that's not really a review, but I still want to make sure I like touch on all the important parts I want to talk about. So yeah, it's kind of balancing that is my biggest hang up. And I have a tendency to throw like way too many images on screen. Like, oh, but I like this piece of artwork. I like this one. And then it takes
That
so
only
long to
bothers
edit.
you because you edit it.
I know.
Right.
I'm like, nobody just wants to watch us talk. But then I'll put one up with like hardly any images and it gets like, 1,000 views. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe no one cares but me.
Right.
I'll just continue making more work for myself.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Nice. So I'm curious with your stuff that you're not doing on the channel, like you released a comic, correct, Dave?
Yeah, I finished
And-
up the first issue of a
Yeah.
comic I've been working on.
I'm curious what that was like, the process and
It was long.
yeah.
It was a long
When did you
process.
start it first?
Oh, shit. It's been like years. But that's not because I'm that slow. It's just that I did it in like all my spare time that wasn't taken up editing, reading,
Being a dad.
working, or like doing anything entertaining. So yeah, it's just been something like I basically taught myself how to use tablet drawing on like the computer for the first time.
Nice.
Using a new program, which was like Manga Studio was what I used to illustrate and like kind of lay out the comic. So it was all just kind of learning from experience. So I never had any like deadline, like I had to hit it in this amount of time. So I just sat there and messed with it and fine-tuned and played around with it.
Okay.
To the point where I'm like, okay, I guess it's done. So yeah, the first issue's done, and now I'm kind of working on the other ones, which it's going to be 4 total. And yeah, it's gonna go quicker now that I kind of have a plan.
Sure. Yeah. So now that you figured out the technology and whatnot, you think it'll go quicker than?
Yeah.
before?
And then I actually just bought a new iPad and Procreate.
Yes, dude.
So I'm playing
Killer.
with that, but now it's like, well, now I'm kind of relearning this all
relearn
again
everything.
because it's very similar to what I used before, but it's also like not quite as intuitive. So I'm learning it as I go. My wife has been playing around with it more than I have. She's been
I saw some pictures.
Yeah, she's been like drawing and coloring, and she's not she's not someone that would normally just go and do something artsy like that. So she's been sitting there on the couch playing with it, and I'm like, my God, I'm gonna just give the the pages to you, and you color on them.
Yeah, you finish the comic.
Yeah, like I'll draw it, and then you just color it at the same time, and we'll have this done in half the time.
There you go.
So we might do that.
That's
We'll
cool.
see. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I'll be
God,
curious
husband and
to-
wife team.
Can you believe that?
That'd
Boom.
be dope.
Like the
How many of those
the
are in
Allreds?
comics?
Not
get
a
it
lot.
on.
Not a lot. Mike Allred and Laura Allred, who did Madman.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a whole lot. Terry and Rachel Dodson.
Mm-hmm.
That might be all I can think of.
Well, you can be the next
You
one.
be the
There
next-
you go.
Yep,
There you
that's
go.
our shoe
The
in.
legacy.
That's your
There's
selling point.
Amanda Connor and
Is it Jimmy Palomino?
Jimmy
Oh,
Palomino.
okay.
I
I
almost
saw him
said
posting something the other day about
Pagliacci.
that. Pagliacci, the clown.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
That's
So
cool.
there's that.
Dope.
You bet.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You been working on anything?
Working. That's a strong word.
Other than fishing? other than fishing?
Well, I usually keep busy every week anyway. This is like the 4th podcast I've done this week, so I've
Nice.
dove hard into that. I
So
was doing
you're getting him on the tail end of his
yeah.
podcasting week.
So I do one with my wife, and we've really started trying to get in the grind of doing that every single week. And it's more of like a cathartic kind of a podcast where it like makes us actually talk to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's been fun, and it's been getting a lot of
What kinds of stuff do you do on it? Is it like relationship stuff or?
It's relationship stuff that you like. You should know if you're an adult and you've never dove
shit.
in to do it yet. And it's like,
crap.
hey,
I
just
don't want to
figure
be
out-
reminded of this stuff.
Yeah, it's like, so I tried to go buy a car today, and turns out I don't know anything about doing that, and this is how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's just kind of stuff like that.
That's cool.
And then when we don't have anything, it's just like what happened in the week, because we've had a pretty tough past year. My daughter had hip surgery, and so she's been in and out of a body cast for almost a whole year. So that's been a whole thing. So we've been kind of updating people on that, and it's been fun. We get a lot of, it's like a totally different demographic of what me and Dave do. So I get it from like weird different sides. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I love to hear your personal stuff, and then be called like a soy boy on the other side of it. So it's like, I don't know where the line
Which
is.
am I?
Fucking chill.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever. And then I of course I do like my pop culture one with my buddy JT, and we do 2 of those a week, and we just do them in a block schedule, like one after the other. So the next one comes up on Monday. This last one, it was a Game of Thrones episode though. So
no.
I don't watch Game of Thrones, so my wife actually did it.
Nice.
So look
great.
forward to that coming up on Monday.
That's
Nice.
What'd you do? Did you just go in the other room and fish?
I had to. No, I just watched my daughter. That was pretty much it. So I changed the poopy diaper, did a little bath time. You know,
Oh man.
The good stuff.
real paternal stuff.
Real paternal.
What
Yeah.
prompted you to add in a second weekly show?
JT wanted to just figure out if it would help with like analytics more or less, because like all of ours were super up and down for like midweek stuff.
JT's just sitting there crunching the numbers.
Yeah, he's the number guy, right?
Is it the same show but two different episodes?
Yeah, the Thursday show that drops is like a long form episode where we do like news of the week and all that kind of stuff. And then the Monday show might be like a retro review where we just do a review of something else, and that's it.
That's a good idea. Maybe we should do that.
Why don't you just kill me here where I sit?
Yeah, let's add a couple more shows to the schedule.
Right?
Yeah.
Have you guys found that any certain thing, like, because I know having access to all like the analytics stuff, I feel like ours are super wonky, where Mondays when it first comes out, there's this ginormous spike, and then there's like nothing, and then there's a spike, and then there's nothing, and then so like, what is that for you guys, and how have you kind of like maneuvered around
with our channel? I think it's good now that we have like a huge backlog of episodes.
Sure.
Even people now will go back and we'll see like, oh, you got a YouTube comment from a video 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I heard someone saying like, "Oh, I'm currently going through all your episodes." We're like, "What?
Why?
Really?
Why?
little tier like
Go back to season 1.
season 1, baby?
Yeah,
So that's a little different because ours are also, I think, a little more evergreen than maybe just like a fresh thing of the week, which I think is good because we trade weight a lot of stuff, and then we're like, let's do some book from the 80s, like this high acclaim thing that everyone will go back to sometime in their comic reading career, like Watchmen or Saga the Swamp Thing or something like that.
yeah. Lately, we've been trying to stay a little more topical. Like this summer, we've been covering a lot of the big like genre movies.
Yeah.
and that's a part that kind of. If there's anything that kind of makes me lose steam on the show, it's feeling compelled to do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because, like, again, you're doing it to put it out by a due date for, like, you know, it's going to be hot for this week.
Yes.
And then after that, it does not matter
Yeah.
You want to
whatsoever.
stay relevant, basically.
Yeah.
Unless it's Captain Marvel, then it
Yes.
matters.
Then it's,
Oh my God.
it's truly evergreen.
I'm super curious because I know for our demographic, like a lot of it is just like friends and maybe the random smattering of people, but you guys are actually more engrossed in the comics community. And I know that movie, like even when we were discussing it, we were like, folks, this is divisive. Like what was, to say the least, but like what was that like for you guys? And like I'm sure there's been interesting discussions or eye-opening realities.
Again, discussions is a strong word.
Yeah.
Sure.
Take it.
It's pretty plain to see how people only watch 2 minutes of a video and make total
like-
judgments on a 30-minute review.
Sure.
And where we actually come out, 5 minutes later saying, like, with all those things up top, this is what I actually think of the movie. Because I think it did a lot of good for the comics community.
Right.
Yep.
Especially for people like my daughter and my wife who don't have this
Yeah,
representation in the
absolutely.
movies and stuff. And then nobody cares about that. At least dudes that yelled at us and called us cucks or whatever. And it's like, Jesus. Because at the end of the day, we was like, the movie was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. It wasn't
Yeah.
my favorite. So
Not everyone has to like everything.
I know,
That's the mindset that a lot of people. I think that's what's not to go on a soapbox,
No, do
but
it.
I was even thinking earlier to this, like, man, I really want to talk about fandom today
Dude,
and how
do
it's
it. Yeah.
broken, right?
Do it.
Yeah.
But
we literally just talked about that last week of just like the whole Game of Thrones explosion.
that was a big one. Like Avengers is the only one that came out unscathed, but everything else, it's like you're just constantly made aware of how spoiled people feel and how entitled the average fan feels, where
Right.
they feel like everything has to please them. To the point where, like, they don't want any surprises. They don't want anything that fits outside of their particular worldview. And, like, just the feeling of, like, you know what? I don't like that, and that's okay. It's not for me, is gone now. In, like, modern fandom.
Yeah.
Everything has to be pleasing at all times, or else you need to, like, go and take up a pitchfork and make a big deal
I think the
about
interesting
it.
thing in the case of Captain Marvel, too, is you get the sense that a lot of the people complaining didn't actually even watch the movie itself. Like, they're just protesting based on, like, quote-unquote principles that they perceive that they need to have
Or
in
somewhat
relation,
stand-up guy.
in relation to the movie. And it's like, because if you listen, like, I listened to your guys' review of it, and it was kind of basically what we said.
Right.
Like, it was good. It was fine. Like, it wasn't, like, the greatest Marvel movie, but it felt similar to, like, Iron Man 1 or Captain America 1, where it's, like, a good origin movie, and maybe we'll get more out of her when it comes forward. But you get the sense that, like you said, they listened to, like, 2 minutes of it, and they already decided, like, oh, they like Captain Marvel, therefore they're shills and cucks.
Yeah. I wish
Like, where does that divide happen? Like,
I wish I felt stronger about it. That's my thing. My biggest takeaway from that was like, yeah, I didn't really care one way or another. And to hear like some people are so like fueled by it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Like
And
I didn't
like, if
walk
you
away
don't like
feeling
it,
like
just leave.
anything
Like, don't
about
even
it.
yeah.
I know. Like, we have, like, that's probably one of our more higher viewed reviews, too.
Yeah.
And it's just people that we've never, that are not familiar in the comments section. They just looked for it to hate on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, what kind of free time do you guys have?
Just be
This is
mad.
beneficial to your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus.
Yeah. definitely.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's that like young energy and passion that someone
That
with
we
a lot of
no
free time
longer have.
Exactly. But as you get older and you have more things that you have to do in your life, you have to like give
Not
up
be
these
mad.
little tirades.
Yeah.
Pick your battles.
Yeah,
Choose the
exactly.
hills to die on.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
And these guys, I say guys because it's mostly guys. I think I can generalize that. Don't have enough things going on to take them away from something as trivial as this.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And
Because I was just...
oh,
go
no,
for
you
it.
go
Nope,
for it.
go for it. You're the
Well, I was
host.
just gonna say the irony
Rock,
of it.
paper, scissors, right now.
Rochambeau.
I was just gonna say the irony of it is they're often the ones complaining about like the politicization of their pop culture, but really they're the ones who are bringing in this like political discussion that nobody ever asked for.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if you watch the review, like you don't really touch on that a lot. Like you say, my wife and my daughter appreciate it and stuff like that, but you don't like dive in headfirst into like the comics gate, like whatever.
Oh my god.
And they kind of like they bring in that like political thing, and you're just like, why are you making this something it's not?
Like the
it's-
irony.
Yeah, we made the mistake of opening very, very briefly. We touched on that, saying like, all right, setting the stage is a movie that's received a lot of eyes and criticism based on like this. And we kind of went down like a bullet list, like it's done this, this, and this. Here's what we think. We're just like right up top. And I think a lot of people like
should've saved that for the end.
Yes, absolutely. I think they just stopped it after that and
Okay.
went into it. But whatever.
Yeah.
People are
Those are the
watching
kinds
it.
of people you probably don't want watching anyway. It's
Well,
Yeah.
we have ads on our videos now, which I don't think we had last time we talked. We sold out and decided
Yeah.
like let's
Oh,
try
did
to
you?
make some of that sweet YouTube cash.
That's
So
I mean, there's nothing
like,
wrong with that.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like all these people are watching it and complaining. It's like, okay, that's fine, but like we're getting
Keep on
money
watching
for
and
these
giving
views.
us views.
so-
Give us views and give us likes, dislikes.
Yeah.
It all boosts the numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
That being said, we make virtually nothing at all. So this
Yeah.
is not us from like a tower, an ivory tower. I don't think we've reached. We haven't reached $100 yet, which is the minimum payout.
yeah.
But it is. We are able to make money off of the videos now. Mm-hmm. Very,
That's
very
cool.
little money.
And that was something that we even like contemplated even doing, because it's like this is just an extracurricular thing. But then we decided, I think last year, to really kind of dive in and like make it more interesting. It's like what you were saying earlier. It's like I really like your new stuff that you're really taking the time to really have a decent polish on it. It's not like a shiny polished thing, but it's the more work you put into it, it's good to see a little kickback for it.
Yeah. It's as polished as we can make it at this point in our lives.
Yeah, for sure.
With various responsibilities and
Well, and
things
I think
like
the
that.
charm with your channel too is the more like the more chill, down to earth like tone it has, and like the fact that you drink on it and you kind of like it's more conversational, and you almost while you're watching it, you almost feel like you're on the couch with you guys discussing, and it's not like
and that's
you're telling me how to think about the book, but rather like we're kind of participating in some ways.
Yeah.
So
that was the goal from the Get Out, because we liked this podcast called Paper Keg, where it almost at one point turned into just about them, and the comics were like back matter in the show, and you didn't care because their lives were just as interesting, or they were just
Relatable.
good enough. Yeah, exactly. That you didn't care, and you just wanted to hear them talk, regardless of what it was.
And I think we both secretly kind of hope that the show could get to that point where it's like, oh, and then maybe like some of the viewers can know that Troy loves fishing on Red Dead Redemption, or there's just little.
we all know.
Everybody knows.
Well, now the world does. These little in-jokes among ourselves that like other people can be brought in and laugh about. Like that was kind of what we always hoped it could be. And I feel like now it's at the point where enough people watch it and know it for what it is and could kind of like laugh about it. Like it's every once in a while we get this really like, kind of I'm making a motion of pushing up my glasses and being like, well, if you guys knew anything about comics, you'd know that Thanos is actually the greatest villain and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not that type of channel, guys. Like, we're not sitting here arguing the validity of Thanos as a character or a person. Like, we're just, like, we're drinking beers in a basement and bullshitting over comics.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be as laid back and conversational as you could make this. So, yep.
For sure.
Cool. Well, speaking of comics and getting all riled up, I know we all saw the Hellboy movie, and I know you guys also did a video on the Hellboy movie.
Yeah.
So what We're a couple months late. We're a couple
It's all right. We're
months
doing
later.
a wrap up. Let's do it all.
I remember originally we planned to see that
We were-
and do
yeah,
the
yeah,
episode
we were
on
planning
it.
on seeing it and then doing the episode.
So here it
It's
is.
it's so funny because I think it was in theaters for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
We wouldn't have
thank God
made
we
it.
didn't wait. You're right. It did not hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious from your guys' perspective, and I guess Phil's also lumped into that, because I am not super familiar with the Hellboy movies or even really the comics either. Like, I think I saw the first Guillermo movie like way back in the day, and that was my only thing. And so I was coming in, and I enjoyed it, but it was rocky, like just objectively as a film. So I'm curious, as you guys being more knowledgeable in the whole source material, like what about this did it nail? What was like absolutely horrific? What would you have changed if you guys could be in the director's chair? Give it all.
The props I would give it is like it does a lot of stuff from the books, but that's also a negative, is that it does a lot all in
Way
one
too much.
movie.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like you should have picked one thing to steer, even if it was like, I don't want to see like a total remake of the Nazi escapades from the first movie that Guillermo did. But like it's kind of has a flashback to that, and it's like that's kind of fun stuff. But it went totally the fantasy route, which it shows in, or it has like the Blood Queen and everything in it, and that's like at the end of Hellboy's
That's
run.
the climax of his story, basically.
Yeah, I'm like, why would you choose to start at the end? I don't know.
Especially with the climax of the story, it has a very definitive end there. And now that they've started with the end but didn't end it, I don't know how they would ever hope to get to that ending.
I
you
don't
know, but that's getting way deeper than we need to. I think objectively, on a purely technical and objective level, it is not a good movie whatsoever. I think as like a fun, entertaining, like so bad it's good type of movie, there's enjoyment to be had out of it. I feel like maybe over time it might get accepted a little bit more now that we know what it is and what it was not.
I was thinking about that, but I don't think personally that it's so bad that it can flip to be good at any point. I think it just has so many pacing issues, more or less, that I'm just like, yeah, objectively as a movie, I don't think it's really well put together. I did fall in love with like David Harbour's Hellboy. I ended up liking that.
Yeah, that was a standout.
But then I wish he played off maybe like an Abe Sapien or somebody else.
Than like a generic military type.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it is something that really tries to appeal to the diehard comic fan by putting all these kind of really specific references in there.
Yep.
But we talked about it too. The diehard comic fan knows that like this isn't Hellboy from the comics.
Right.
Like the character is still off. He's still kind of like too much of a grumpy teenager.
I don't know what their
than like a
obsession
working
is
class.
with making him like a petulant teenager.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know that
in
either.
the comics, he's like a brooding, like weather-worn detective.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
like 50
For
years
some
old.
reason, they read that as like father issues. And like we need to have him have father issues.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's that, and then like just the pacing and the atmosphere is completely off. Like Hellboy is a meandering book.
Yeah.
Like it's a melancholy meandering book where it has like fits of big explosive action, but it is not like nonstop breakneck pace. And that is how this is, like just punctuated by really loud rock music throughout.
Bad CGI.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I don't know, man. We've talked about it. I think it would be interesting to do a really like bare bones type of Hellboy story where you pick a short story and just do it like on a low budget
Like
scale,
Crooked
where a
Man
lot
or
of it,
something?
where a lot of it's just atmosphere and mood, and that, I mean, that's Hellboy to me. That's what I like about it. I don't love it for the big monster fights. I like it for kind of the poetic darkness of the character.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the first person to say that, but I think it would work much better as like a series because you can have that meandering pace to it sometimes. Even if you had it like Legend of Kung Fu, where he's just like wandering the earth or whatever and comes across all this weird stuff, it would work way better.
We talked about like how it would be great for Netflix, where if they did it in the style of that Love, Death, and Robots show, where every episode it would be animated and they could be varying lengths, and every episode could have like a different style, like an artistic style.
That'd be cool.
And then the Mignola verse is so huge. You could do like an episode in the 40s with like the BPRD. You could do like back in the 1700s with Edward Gray.
Dude, that would be
You'd
so cool.
do like just random Crooked Man episodes.
Yeah.
That would be perfect. And every episode has a different look and feel. Like hopefully somewhere in there they get the Mignola, like look and style to
like
it.
An animated Mignola.
Yeah, but then like let people go nuts. As long as you kind of stick to the stories, that would be cool. Or like what you were saying, a wandering kung fu thing. Just set it like when he leaves the bureau, and then just have it like him wandering the earth.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool too, like a Ronin type of character.
That would be sweet.
I think I think because of the nature of like movies and blockbusters right now, especially superhero movies, it almost felt like they felt the need to just have it be like bombastic and nonstop action and like epic 80s music or whatever, and like
That's
just kind
it.
of like they
Monet,
almost
Monet.
yeah,
more Monet.
they
I
like
think
just took all
Suicide
these
Squad
weird
did some of that to it too.
And I think because of that, like maybe they can't make a successful Hellboy movie because you need those brooding and somber moments that would work as a TV show.
I think that's it.
Because it worked with Endgame in a sense. Like the whole first part of that movie is just brooding and like slow paced, but like that was a 10-year buildup.
They've earned that.
We were willing to sit there for an hour and believe that this was the case. But with Hellboy, I think a TV show would work way better because of that.
Yeah.
Like you could have a whole episode that's just him wandering and stumbling upon weird folklore stuff and like nothing really happening action wise, but like there are things happening like world building and stuff, and then you get one episode where it's just nonstop like him fighting monsters and doing whatever. So
you can even like name seasons of like where he is, like Hellboy Europe, and he's just traversing through Europe, or Hellboy
Africa.
Texas or something like
Hellboy
that.
Texas.
Partner, whatever,
Yeah.
I would love a Hellboy in Mexico, like animated.
That would be
awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
And we did. I mean, they tried to give a taste of that in the movie, and this is a perfect example of something where that caught me off guard because that's a classic Hellboy story that everyone loves, and we didn't expect it in this.
Yeah.
And they gave it to us like halfway. They did enough that it was fan service, and you're like, yeah, that was cool, but they didn't like do it right.
The emotional impact that it should have had.
Right. You're like, I
pay
appreciate it because I know it's throwing back, it's hearkening to something better, but what we got isn't really good on its own. you know?
That's kind of how I felt throughout the whole movie. Like as I was watching it, I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. Like, oh, Lobster Johnson, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, oh, the Wild Hunt, like that looks pretty dope. And like kind of going through it thinking like all of these scenes look really cool and I can picture the moments in the comics, but then you think about like the grand total of what they created and you're like, that was a really disjointed effort. Like
they halfway did everything.
Like nothing had the true like emotional impact it had in the comics because it was just there for the sake of being there.
Yeah, I'm sitting there smiling from ear to ear, and I look over at the person next to me, and they're thinking, "Who the fuck is Lobster Johnson?" Like my favorite part is something that they thought was the dumbest thing in the world.
Right.
It's like, okay, obviously there's a discess here.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Who names their kid Lobster?
That's awesome. And why is Sandman playing him? Is this a sequel to Spider-Man 3?
Please no.
Multiverse.
Yeah.
We get an emo Spidey in Hellboy.
Oh no.
Would.
That'd be trouble.
Yeah. That would be trouble.
Sitting next to the wine mom across from you, and it's like, is that the fella from Sideways with Paul Giamatti? I like that movie. Yeah.
So on this topic of like comic book movies, I feel like we didn't get to experience this as much, but I feel like there's this weird transition where like nerd culture and pop culture became super mainstream. Do you guys think that there's any other comics that are going to come to the limelight in like future movies that like maybe we haven't even heard about, or if you have any predictions or like, I don't know, I'm curious like what you think is going to be the trajectory of this now that like pop culture is cool to make into like 50 different things. Like what's next? Because like Umbrella Academy, we had...
I saw that
Deadly Class
Dark
and
Horse
Sci-Fi.
did sign an exclusive deal with Netflix. So
Nice.
That's
I'm hoping for a Black Hammer or something like that.
They are doing a Black Hammer,
they?
but it's not through Netflix. I don't think. I think it's a
somebody had
separate thing.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody already had the movie rights to that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good
Jeff
question.
Lemire.
Yep, Jeff Lemire. I think creators like Jeff Lemire and Brian K. Vaughan, if
Yep.
he ever gets anything off the ground. I think, like, you know, because after Avengers, I feel like maybe, I don't want to say we've reached a breaking point, but I think that is a moment where people could drop off now because they've done it all.
Yep.
And people have went through it for 10 years and saw a very good conclusion. And they can be like, yeah, you know, I'm good with just like big name brand superheroes now. And now I think we might be more open than we have in the past to these smaller, kind of underserved, really good creator-owned books.
Yeah.
So like Dark Horse and Image, I'm really hoping are going to kind of hit their stride here as far as adaptations. And we've gotten some good ones already. But I think there's a lot more out there that people are starting to kind of wise up to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, hopefully whenever the Invincible movie comes out, that's regarded well. I haven't heard anything about it in a long time.
Are they doing a movie for that?
They're doing both.
Really?
They're doing a show
Because I saw they
and
were
a
doing
movie.
an animated show, which that would be pretty sick if they
Yeah,
do it right.
Seth Rogen is producing it.
Yeah.
What?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He did Preacher, and he
Oh,
also
wow.
is doing The Boys, and he's also doing this.
I watched the trailer for The Boys, and I was like, holy crap. I did not expect that.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious on how the people are going to take that.
I don't know either. It's
It's an interesting. I've been noticing that with the Avengers, a lot of like the TV shows are going the opposite direction. Like, let's just take all the dark stuff now and like let's kind of like a reaction to it. And The Boys seems like almost the logical extension of that.
yeah. Well, we're at the point now where like the comic book movie has become so ingrained in pop culture that now like the audience is ready for the deconstruction of the
Yeah.
comic book
Yeah.
movie. Where like the Watchmen movie might have been ahead of its time in that regard because that Watchmen is very much a deconstruction of superhero movies or comics. And we got it 10 years ago before we had like these huge Avengers movies.
Yeah.
So now, after going through all of those, I think we're finally ready to like, yeah, now we have an evil take on Superman, or now we have like this, vampire take on Batman, or something like that, where it doesn't have to be these big name heroes, but a facsimile of them, and enough people know what they represent that you can turn it on its head.
That's kind I haven't thought about it that way. Like like the deconstruction movement is now happening in like TV and movies. kind
Yeah,
of.
because everyone's saying like, "Oh, I'm so burned out of superhero movies." It's like, well, now we can open the door to like different takes on
Yeah.
superhero movies,
Yeah.
which is kind of like why Deadpool was such a big hit, I think, because that was essentially that. You know, he's
Yeah.
sitting there kind of poking fun at all the tropes, and there's other ones that do it too. Can't think of any right off the top of my head, but I know they're out there. But even stuff like Umbrella Academy now too. It's like, it's kind of like the X-Men, but it's also its own
more
thing.
dysfunctional.
Which for some reason was really like everyone loved it. Which
Yeah.
if you would have told me like everyone would love the Umbrella Academy back when I was reading the comic and loving it, I'd be like, bullshit. No, they won't. Like I like the Umbrella
outta here.
Academy. No one else is.
Yeah.
No one else is gonna like that.
Yeah.
But it really hit with a lot of people.
Yeah. Or Deadly Class is another one.
Yeah.
I
think
just bought that
Happy
today.
Is another one
On the
Did
PlayStation
you?
Network. They're on
Nice.
sale again. I
It's
haven't
good.
seen it yet.
It's good. Yeah.
Yep. Happy was
is
really
another
good.
one. So yeah, we're getting a lot of like darker deconstructionist kind of
Oh shit.
TV
Doom
shows.
Patrol is absolutely
Patrol.
I
that.
finished that yesterday.
I did too. And it was great.
Still
Yeah.
need to. I'm waiting for them to release the app on either PlayStation or Xbox because I don't have anything that can like stream it to my
Gotta
TV.
get that Roku.
So
Yeah.
That Roku,
Yeah.
I need to
baby.
get. I need to get 4K Roku, but
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, Doom Patrol was really, really good.
I've been hearing.
Yes,
I've been
it
seeing
was
really
really
good things
good.
about it.
It was so much better than it had any right to be.
I am so surprised on how much I liked Doom Patrol because I was like, it's on like DC's streaming network. Like, what does this?
What
have
could they
to
possibly bring to the table?
Yeah, and they
especially
did like.
opening with Titans.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
and kind of the shakiness of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then and Doom Patrol ended up like blowing my mind. I mean, I have criticisms of it.
Yeah.
But like on the whole, like I could go for a rewatch of it. I really enjoyed it quite a
Totally.
bit.
It has its share of flaws, but it has so many good, interesting like pros to it that I would say yes, it completely outweighs any negatives that it has.
Yes.
I need to see that.
And it
They-
makes me excited for Swamp Thing coming up.
Yeah.
I've been
yeah.
seeing.
next
I've been
week.
seeing good reviews, like some earlier like takes
Good.
on it.
Yeah,
are
8
saying
out of
it's good.
10. I think one
Wow.
magazine gave it.
I'm afraid it might be too scary for me though.
It might be pretty spooky.
That's what I'm scared of. But,
For some reason, I can do horror in comics. Like it doesn't scare me at all. Like Hellboy or all this stuff that's supposed to be like scary. Like, it doesn't freak me out, but like once you like visualize it, then I get like freaked out.
Music that's
walks,
a lot.
talks, and all that
music,
stuff.
and you can get like the darkness captures more, and
Yep.
So,
definitely.
and sound design, all that stuff.
But
sure.
To circle back to your question, I think now that like even with the Avengers films, they've gotten to a point where if you think about them, like they're doing weird things. Like they're talking about magic rocks, and this alien has a glove that can make them all do anything.
Right.
You tell anybody that, and they're like, "What the fuck are you even talking about?" Who's never seen them?
Right.
So I'm like, let's get into weird stuff now. Like where you can just do anything. So something like a Brian K. Vaughan book, or even like the tamest thing that he's done, like Why the Last Man, has been trying to get off the ground forever.
It blows me away that isn't one of the first adaptations we've gotten.
Yeah, but then he has stuff like Saga, which
Man,
is
that
like
one would
deemed
be nuts
unfilmable.
if they tried to do that.
I feel like you can only really do it in animation, but then I said that about Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
But then he has like stuff also like Ex Machina, which like nobody ever talks about, but I love that book.
Yeah.
It's
I read
really
the first
good.
couple trades. It's good. Mm-hmm. It's got like that political. I think like especially like with the common audience, like shows like Game of Thrones and stuff are so successful because they have like that political intrigue that people are enticed by, and I think Ex Machina would kind of fill that niche a little bit.
Highly political, which might be just
Depending on
bad
how
for
you
some audiences,
depending on how
but-
you do it, yeah.
I think we're at the point where that take on politics could be really welcome right now. Like, when did Ex Machina come out? It's been like well over 10 years, right?
Yeah, I want to say it came out during the Bush administration.
I think one of the most interesting things about it, which it's never a plot point, it's just something that is part of their world building, is that he saves the second tower during the 9/11 attacks.
Yeah.
So through the entire comic, one of the World Trade Center towers is still standing, and it's never like brought up. Nothing hinges on that, but it's like, wow, what an interesting way to set this in the world that we live in, but just kind of
Veer it a little bit off course. Yeah.
So it's like, I can relate to this, but obviously something happened, and now this is like the course that it's taken.
Yeah, and he's even got like a book, Private Eye, which
that one was good.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Dave to read it. He hasn't read it yet. But I think they would make like for a good like Netflix movie or something like that. I don't know if I couldn't ever see it like on the big screen. But again, what do I know? I said Umbrella Academy would never be or live action.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the weird thing is like Runaways has been adapted, and that was a Brian K. Vaughan thing. Mm-hmm. Like it has a full season.
I still haven't seen that either.
I think I tried watching it, and I wasn't in the mood for it. But it's like, well, yeah. I mean, they did something. Like the thing that I would be least interested in seeing and bring to light, they did, and it has a walking, talking dinosaur in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you still didn't do Why the Last Man?
Yeah,
like all you have to
Man,
do is a monkey.
Yeah, of all of them, seems like the one that should have gotten off the ground, like you said first, because of the inherent like politicalness of it. It seems relevant.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why because I think it's still happening. But I think
I
they
don't
got
think
rid
it
of
is
the
anymore.
Really?
I think the showrunners left, and I think it just dropped. I think it's dead in the water now.
Because the last I saw was the showrunners left, and they were looking for new ones, which is probably not a good sign. But
yeah, I don't know. I would love to see it happen. Like at this point, I just want to see it. I don't even care if it's good anymore. It's like just show
give me
it.
something. Yeah. And we're getting the Watchmen show on HBO. I don't
That
know.
looks intriguing.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
Like
with the
Cult
the
of
Rorschach,
Rorschachs.
like the Guy Fawkes mask from V for Vendetta. That's going to be the new mask that these dudes are wearing around. Rorschach masks.
I don't think I ever made that connection.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
oh goodness.
Which
But
is
that
interesting because like Rorschach is very much not a great character.
No.
Well, I mean, he's a good character in like the story.
He's a
but
well-written character,
Yes.
but he's not a good.
He's not a good person. He's way too like straight black and white type of
Super
personality.
right-wing.
Yeah.
Like, terroristy almost.
So it's interesting how he is the one that like a lot of fans gravitate towards because he's like this take no prisoners guy. But it's like, yeah, but that doesn't work in the real world. And this is what happens when a bunch of crazy people rally behind someone like that. They become very dangerous.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's what they're going to explore in the movie.
Yeah, I think so. Or the show.
It's the show. Yeah. It's written by Damon Lindelof, I think, who did Lost and The Leftovers.
Yes,
which I'm watching currently. So.
I heard The Leftovers is fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that, to see a more modern take on the Watchmen and see if they do it well.
Yeah,
So.
I remember for a while it seemed like we were just like drowning in Watchmen media. And I love Watchmen, but I'm at the point where it's like, I don't know if I need any more adaptations of the story. I feel like we probably did it. even if we did
one.
If we did another full movie that they nail the ending, you know, I'm like, yeah, but will it have better moments than some of the stuff that we got in the previous movie? Because there's stuff in that I love. Like Dr. Manhattan's trip to Mars, I think is perfection.
Yep.
And I wouldn't trade that for a more comic accurate movie. So I'm like, I'm good with Watchmen. If you're going to do it, like, yeah, progress the story.
Exactly.
Even though like some of the diehard purists are like, no, you don't touch it. It's like, oh, go ahead.
At this point, they're going to touch it. At this point, they're going to touch it, so they might as well do it well.
We're going to get a sequel to everything in our lifetime. So like, yeah, dude, take another crack at Watchmen. Go for it.
And that's the thing I like about the show is it seems like they're more exploring like the logical extensions of what happened in the original comic. At least that's what I'm interpreting it as based on what we've seen.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in that to see like, okay, what would the world be like if Ozymandias actually destroyed millions of people in New York, and like how would the world react to that? And lo and behold, you get like a creepy cult of Rorschach people who like are like, I don't know, and it could have interesting political ramifications for kind of our current climate and stuff. So.
Definitely. It feels way more interested in telling like a political story rather than like a superhero thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's interesting because it's something you could talk about.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, did you see it, you know, when he threw him through the window? That was cool, you know?
Well, and that was the thing about the first movie is Zack Snyder almost like created the characters back into superheroes.
Yeah.
Even though it was supposed to be a deconstruction of the superhero.
Yeah.
And which is why so many people love Rorschach now, because they made him seem so like dope and awesome and like Batman almost. Whereas the comic kind of like
you should
more
pity
negative.
Rorschach.
Yeah,
you
like,
shouldn't
should pity him
look
and
up to
not
him.
think he's correct.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm always curious because, especially like to your point, Dave, it's always fascinating how we're in this weird cycle of everything getting remade again. You know, like, I mean, the live action Aladdin just came out Friday, I think.
Yep.
You know, and so now we're in this phase of, all right, Disney's going to remake every single animation they ever did because that was our childhood.
Yep.
And now there's like new kids that this is all they're going to know, and which I find fascinating instead of like remaking the animated movie or redoing something that is in its original form, like putting it into a different style. So
I mean, that was the whole point of their vault in the first place, was so it would seem like movies are coming out so like children could relive the magic of Disney every like 10 years or whatever. But now they're like, let's just make more money because they're going to pay for it.
Let's make
right?
more money.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, in this age, you can get anything at any point that I don't think putting them in a vault is hurting anyone but themselves because they're just going to get pirated. I don't think I've heard of the Disney vault in like 10 years. Is that even a thing anymore?
It still is, yeah.
Is it?
I looked
Things
it
are
up
still
like
in the vault?
a couple months ago just because I was like, what even is the vault? Like, why are they literally putting movies in a vault? Because I don't think that works anymore.
They're just steamrolling things into a big pit.
Don't they know we can find this stuff now?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, now that we have digital, like, you can't vault things anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm fairly certain that Disney said they're going away with the vault once their Disney Plus platform comes out.
Everything's just going to be on that.
Available.
Dude, that's going to steamroll Netflix off the face of the earth.
I don't know. I think Netflix is established enough where it's already got a good foothold because everybody has it. But also everyone will have Disney Plus. And
the
their
problem
buyout
is
of
they're
going to
lose
too.
a lot of licenses, I think, once
the
Fox
for sure.
thing goes through, and Hulu now is owned by Disney as well.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Crazy.
I think that's what's interesting about how Netflix is looking into more comic properties. You know, it's like they're picking publishers like Dark Horse.
Yeah,
and
the
being
Dark
like,
Horse deal is an interesting one.
Yeah, they're like, these guys have tons of like Eisner award-winning material that no one's touching, and we aren't going to have Disney, or we're not going to have Marvel anymore, so we need to find something to fit that, you know, that hole. So they're like, yeah, let's just go here. No one is touching this stuff, and apparently it's good. Let's do those.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they also did that deal with Mark Millar.
Yep.
All of Mark Millar's stuff is tied up with Netflix too now.
Yep.
So a bunch of his stuff, everything he's writing is owned by Netflix
Exclusive
at the
to
moment.
Netflix.
So
he's got a lot of stuff too.
yeah, yep. They're printing, like, the comics are published by Netflix now.
Yep.
And then they can make any of the shows and movies out of it. Which
It's
is
pretty
like,
forward thinking
that's
of
cool,
Netflix,
you know?
because it's like back when, I forget when it was, but when Sony sold the rights to most of the characters, like the Marvel characters, to Disney.
Yeah.
Because they're like, all they wanted was Spider-Man, and nobody else cared about any of the other ones.
Uh-huh.
And now we're where we're at, and Netflix is probably like, crap, we got to get all these, like, we got to just start getting all these comic properties, like, eaten up. Like,
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time for streaming because, like, we're talking about DC has their streaming, and we're getting Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol in the same year.
Yeah.
Which it's like, never would I have imagined we would get a Doom Patrol anything, let alone, like, 15 episode hour series. Live action.
That's crazy.
With like David Bowie soundtrack and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you serious?
That's
with
nuts.
straight up like adaptations from Grant Morrison's run. Like never would I have imagined that.
Yeah.
And then right when that's over, we're getting a full Swamp Thing. So like anything is possible right now.
Yeah.
And that all happens in the same year that we got another Hellboy movie and the biggest Avengers movie of all time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, like, because the big mainstream superheroes are so popular, I think it lends all these, like, smaller publications to be like, oh, we're relevant. You know, we can sneak in here and actually make some stuff like Umbrella Academy. We keep coming back to that because it was such a hit of a property that no one had any idea what it was. And the biggest claim to fame was that it was by the writer of it was the Chemical Romance singer.
Yep.
You know? And now I feel like Umbrella Academy is almost more popular than Chemical Romance.
Well, at least now.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, on the word of Marvel and Avengers, which character are you guys most surprised by maybe the mainstream audience gravitating towards based on, like, their run in the comics or, like, how much success they had? Because part of me, I knew a little bit about, like, per se, like, Black Panther, but then that, like, was one of the top-selling movies in the whole country, and obviously there's a lot behind that, too, not just, you know, the character himself, but just, like, who surprised you maybe in terms of like audiences maybe from your comic knowledge?
These are good questions.
We need to drink more.
We need to drink more. Lesson learned.
I would say maybe Thor, because even in his Marvel comic run or his Marvel movie run, people were pretty like lackluster on him. Especially the second one where it's like everyone kicks it, and I don't think it's that bad, but like Thor Ragnarok came out and it changed everyone's mind, and then in Infinity War and in Endgame he was like the hot ticket. Everyone wanted to see more Thor, and I'm like, all it needed was one little thing, and it turned everyone around.
Make him into this kind of like good-natured bro instead of like this
Big Lebowski.
This like Shakespearean speaking thunder god. It like just turned him into this just kind of dim-witted but likable everyman, and like everyone connected with him.
Turns out people like dim-witted, likable everyman.
Who's still like incredibly handsome.
It's coming back to me, baby.
You didn't let me finish, but he's also incredibly handsome.
Shit. Dang it.
Yep. No, I would say Thor too. I don't love Thor, but I think they've got a great take on that character now that makes him way more interesting than he ever was before. Like, I like the classic Thor, but he's never been a favorite of mine. You know, he's very like unaccessible, and they made him very down to earth.
I feel like it's probably hard to write in like a god, basically, like an all powerful, because you can tell even in the movies they were struggling at first.
It's like, so
what
how
do we
tough
actually
is
do
he?
with a god character who basically has infinite? It's kind of like Captain Marvel now, like, who is basically just Superman. Like, they can just do whatever they want whenever, and there's barely any weakness. So it doesn't seem like till Ragnarok they kind of figured out, like, okay, we need to just make him a likable person rather than having interesting powers that we can utilize to their full extent.
Yeah. And a lot of that was him getting like broken down to nothing and then having to go from there. He was humbled. I'm trying to think of a character. Does it have to be a Marvel character?
Nah.
Say
whatever.
yes.
Yeah, we might as well. Let's keep it, or else we're gonna be here all day. Shit, I don't know. I'm gonna think on this. Keep talking. I don't want to hold it up.
I'm kind of surprised Black Widow is kind of still getting a movie, actually, especially after Endgame.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping maybe that'll turn something around to get like, the female movie going audience to be like, yeah, that was friggin' badass. She finally has a movie herself, and she's like just this take no prisoners bitch or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And she's totally kick-ass. Because like I went back and started doing an Iron Man rewatch right before Endgame, and I watched Iron Man 1 and 2, And when Black Widow shows up in that, I'm like, whoa, she is like way different than she ends up in Endgame.
Yeah, she's like the femme fatale.
Tony.
Yeah.
I remember my wife and I watched it, and she's like, after having seen Infinity War, and she was like, why is she flirting with Iron Man? I was like, that's just how her character was before.
It was a different
goes
time.
away.
It was a different time.
It was a different time.
But
they didn't get that you didn't have to do that in movies.
Yeah, very much.
I liked in the Joss Whedon Avengers movies, like the little aspects that he threw into her character. Even the beginning kind of opening where she was tied up in that chair and kicked the guys' asses in that whole room. That was pretty cool. And then just like little touches of her character, like even in Age of Ultron. And then all of a sudden you're like into like Winter Soldier, where it's like, oh yeah, she's really formidable. But it's like taking this long for her to get like, a minimal amount of fanfare, where I still never even thought she would even get her own movie, and now it's in production currently.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a bad time now because
well,
either good or bad depending on well, she's dead, and we've already gotten like 3 or 4 female fronted like Russian spy movies in like the past 3 years.
Well, there's some other spy, Anna or something is coming out.
Anna is coming out.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence was in one at one point.
Yeah, that's a Red
so
Sparrow.
It's kind
and
of
she's
like,
also a ballet dancer too.
Yeah. So like, is that genre like already dying, or like maybe it's now a resurgence where like it's the time for it to come out?
Subversion.
It feels like she could have been the kind of character to introduce that thing, but they were too timid to do it. Like, oh, people wouldn't like a
they could have. I mean, they could have beat Wonder Woman to the box office in terms of like a female-led hero, because she was already established by that well before Wonder Woman came out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not dying to see a Black Widow movie. Like, her character, I never loved that character. She's good in it, but she's just kind of like one of the gang to me. She's
kind of
not
like the opposite
standout.
of Thor. Like, what do we do with somebody who doesn't have any superpowers and is just kind of like there? And they can't fly. They can't
real
really,
personality.
Yeah,
either.
they didn't really like flesh her out as much, and then she just dies.
Yeah,
I kind of fingers crossed for Ronan, that it's like a Ronan like. Because I feel like they kind of set that up in Endgame. Because it feels like they're kind of doing this reverse continuity now, where like they could do.
I would love to see their backstory.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally get to see that. What was the mission?
Oh, it's not Bangladesh, is it?
No, it starts
Budapest.
with a B. Budapest.
Yeah, let's see.
See that
maybe on
Budapest
Disney
thing.
Plus.
Talk-
Disney
yeah.
Plus TV show.
Yeah.
We were joking that it was just like this time that they were in Budapest and got some really bad food and got food poisoning.
You remember?
I remember. Oh, it's not as bad as Budapest.
Never forget.
Remember that plane trip back? Oh, God.
Holding in a dump for 17 hours.
Turbulence, couldn't get up to use the restaurant or the restroom. Back to your question, I think a character that resonated with me that had never resonated with me before, and I really never expected to like as much as I did, was Captain America.
Interesting.
And I think it's totally the portrayal of Chris Evans there. Because like the character is just like this straight shooter military guy where I'm like, that's kind of my least favorite type of personality, because I'm a very like military guy. But just the charm and everything that he brought to it, I'm like, man, I really like him. He's not my personality, but I appreciate like the earnestness of his character. He plays it really well.
And his character arc, like from where he starts and where he goes to, is very well written as well.
Yeah, he's essentially like the Superman of the Marvel universe, or as much as we like. Powers wise, it's Captain Marvel, but personality, it's totally Steve Rogers. And I don't think that ever really. I don't think I ever knew that was his personality at reading it. Left to my own imagination, I didn't instill that on him when I read the character.
You read more of like the
soldier,
soldier guy,
especially off Ultimates, where he's kind of an asshole, and that was one of my like first exposures to like reading Captain America. But yeah, the way they portray him in the movie, it's just like, oh man, that really clicks for me. I totally get that character, and I like having him here. I like that character in this team.
Yeah, I remember when Captain America first came out, I thought it was a cool movie, but he was definitely not like in my top. I was like, because I remember watching the first Avengers and seeing like all these dudes like flying around and Hulk's jumping over buildings, and Captain America's just like, like jumping up, like climbing on ledges, and I'm like, this guy's doing nothing. Like,
I am so winded. I just climbed up 3 cars and I am bushed.
And so I was like pretty unimpressed with his character, but I think by the end and by end game hitting and him just like going ham with that hammer and just going nuts,
chills.
Like he basically like became my favorite character in that moment. I was like,
I got so wet when that happened.
As wet as I am right here, just bacon. Yeah, just like the perseverance. That's something that really has come to appeal to me in movies lately, where I don't typically like tear up over sad moments in these movies. And I say these movies because like all I get to see are superhero movies anymore. It's just what I'm flooded with. Like my college self would be kicking me right now. But I am a sucker for like this great like heroic moment in movies now where like this single dude is like standing up to adversity, and maybe it's just because the world is kind of shit right now and it seems like people can't do that, but to see Captain America like tighten his shield there and stand up to Thanos even though he had no one behind him, and like that is just like, oh, God bless, Cap. You just keep doing it. Yeah, like I love that. That's it's something where a more cynical version of myself would be like, but now I'm at the age where I'm like, no, we need that.
You can appreciate
we need that right
things,
now.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that AntMan has like, because I was trying to like run through, and I feel like that was another one with the casting with like Paul Rudd. I never. You're telling me the I Love You Man guy is like gonna be like,
you mean the guy from Clueless,
right?
The guy from Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers,
and he's a superhero, and he's actually a very
so
fun.
likable.
Yeah, he's like a fun character.
Yeah, he's the everyman of the Marvel universe,
right?
And if it wasn't Paul Rudd, it would never have hit.
No.
I remember it was between him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt for casting.
Oh,
and I was leaning
know.
towards Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I was like, yeah,
I think
get
it would have
him.
been a very different character.
But
Yeah.
I love Paul Rudd in this.
Yeah.
Like, I would not want a Joseph Gordon-Levitt Ant-Man.
Definitely. Cool.
I would even say like during the whole run of things, everyone kicks on Hawkeye, but I think he's got a lot of great moments in a few movies that like makes him very redeeming.
Avengers 2 is kind of his movie.
Yeah. And I really like that, and even it kind of calls back to it in Endgame where like it calls back to his family and all that kind of stuff, and he's missing, and he's totally a broken person, and he had a lot of ups and downs during the whole 10-year span. Like I really don't think there's a bad character in the whole bunch, but like everyone's like, he shoots an arrow, whatever.
Yeah, I think that those characters, even like Hulk, they kind of like suffered because their character arcs had to just exist in like the team movies because they didn't get their own movies. Whereas like Iron Man, we got 3 Iron Man movies plus he was in all the other movies basically. Same with Captain America, like we saw those 2 a ton. Whereas Hawkeye, all we saw him in was the couple team movies that we got. So like I agree with you. I think he has a really cool character arc as well, and it kind of like is overshadowed maybe by other characters.
Yeah. I think he's a great supporting character where if we got more of him, I don't know if it would resonate as much. Like maybe we'd be like really turned off, like, okay, enough with you and your kids. But for what we get, he kind of like brings it down to earth, and you're like, okay, I get this guy. Like he is a normal guy who's always in like extraordinary circumstances, and he just has one really good skill. You know,
I don't know if it's the John Wick or Punisher fan in me, but I almost would like to see a Ronin movie that took place in between those like 5 years where he goes like where he like snaps and goes nuts.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because just that aesthetic of his scene where in like Tokyo or whatever, where it was just like almost like cyberpunky and like like that whole scene was just like, man, this would be
Tokyo.
This would be dope.
Dude.
It's like John Wick but with like a bow and arrow. Like,
we got.
All right, I'd take that.
And we got that tease with that cool.
My phone.
Quit it.
Ruh-roh, Reggie.
Popular guy.
His samurai or his ninja costume.
Whoops.
Freaking Phil. No, it's fine.
Sorry, my leg was falling asleep.
They kept like teasing the Ronin stuff and all the production art, and then it was only on screen for like that 30-second clip, and I'm like, I kind of wanted more of that.
Absolutely.
Like I like that it had its part there, and it's a throwback to kind of an obscure arc of the New Avengers run, which I really love. Like I like that part of Hawkeye's history, but I never would have expected that we're getting that in the movie.
Right.
Do you know much about Hawkman in the comics?
Hawkman?
Or what is I'm like forgetting what his name is
Hawkeye?
now. The Hawkeye.
Hawk dude.
Is he similar in the comics to what he is in the movies? Because in the movies he has like a family and he's kind of like
it's definitely the ultimate take on him.
Yeah, it's from Mark Millar's The Ultimates run is kind of what that character's based on.
His original like Marvel cinema or like 616 universe is like he used to be a circus performer
and then a criminal, right?
And then a criminal, and then him and Scarlet Witch, who were bad guys because she was Magneto's daughter, got put onto the Avengers, and then they turned out to be good guys then, and then
like the original core team of the Avengers leave, and they bring in those two and Vision and someone else, right? And it was like
Vision.
4 new members.
It was, I think, Quicksilver.
Oh yeah, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, and someone else.
Captain America.
Wasn't Quicksilver in the Avengers 2 for like
Ultron.
a moment?
Yep.
And then they killed him off probably because Fox owns him or something.
Yeah,
he
because
was in
Days of
Fox
Future
X-Men,
Past came out the same year. So we had 2 Quicksilvers.
For a moment, yeah.
Awkward.
For a hot second.
Interesting. Because I know Jeff Lemire has written a Hawkeye book, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that some of his takes are more like he's not as like good of a person as he is. Like he's a criminal, or he's kind of like a more like jaded type character. Whereas in the movies, until his family dies, he seems more of a like a chill.
I mean, he's a family man.
Like
he's
a
like, I'm
chill
just on the
family
farm.
man. Like he's just kind of like
farm.
The Avengers is kind of just his side job that he's doing to make a quick buck to support his family.
Yeah, he's a working class guy.
Yeah,
he could be delivering mail. He could be shooting arrows.
Yeah.
In the Ultimates, he's like this Black Ops guy who's kind of like a Bruce Willis, jack of all trades type of guy. And he also has a family, and in that arc, his family gets killed, and then he goes like full revenge mode. And then the follow-up arc, which it goes to a different writer, and they ruin it. They make him like this crazy Death Wish type Punisher character. And the movie was kind of a mix of that, where you kind of see that he's like gone over the edge, but then they quickly kind of pull him back, because that, like, what do you do with that character then after that? We already have the Punisher.
Like the Avengers can't really work with somebody who's just
exactly
slaughtering people.
A murderous foe.
But somehow they still do. Like, oh, you've killed tons of people. Yeah, sure. What?
They were
Come
all
on
bad
back.
guys.
They're all evil anyway.
Right.
Who hasn't shown down with their reverse duplicate in a final battle and then murdered them? Who hasn't killed Jeff Bridges in an iron suit?
Yeah.
We've been there, folks.
Yes. Something we can all relate to.
Right.
That being said, I love Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, but that was never one that like snuck up on me. I loved him from the first Iron Man movie and continued to love him throughout all of his appearances.
It's funny because I did when I first went through it, but when I did my rewatch, I was like, man, this guy was a D-bag, like hardcore at the beginning.
Yeah,
but like you come to like love him because of the arc that he goes through. Like he's almost like the most redeemed character in a sense.
And the entire 22 movies is basically kind of his long story.
Yeah, it's basically his story.
Yeah.
I went back and rewatched Iron Man 1, and he's got a huge arc in that. Like, he starts as a prick general.
Yeah.
Like,
He's got that whole scene with like the Jericho, and he's just like,
Yep.
yeah,
The
like,
most
look
popular
at how
gif.
fucking awesome I am. And then he totally redeemed himself by the end.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love the first Iron Man movie. It's been ages since I've
great.
seen it,
Yeah.
but I probably watched that more than any of them.
Yeah.
Like when it came out.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting seeing it like now with hindsight, because when it came out in like 2008, it has like that Middle East connection that they haven't really touched much on like current affairs in Marvel movies since then, I feel like. And now when rewatching that one, I'm like, man, they really almost started going down that route.
Yeah,
with
you couldn't get away
arc.
from that in that time period though.
So it's kind of interesting going back. It's like a little snippet of history in some ways.
It was also owned by Paramount at the time, and it wasn't bought by Disney yet. And
Really?
so,
Iron Man?
Iron Man 1 and 2 are Paramount Pictures.
Oh, because I know
Before
Hulk
they-
was too, and I
Hulk
don't think
is-
they
yeah,
ever
it's-
own Hulk.
Hulk is
Ever owned
Universal,
him.
and Universal
okay.
still owns
That's
the
why they
Hulk.
can't make any movies, I think.
can't make
right?
any
They own
solo
he can
movies.
appear
His
in
arc
other
is
things.
just in other movies.
I'm okay with that because I don't need another Hulk movie. We've had like
Yeah, he's kind of one of those that you
a
also
one-note.
don't know what to do with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you want to see him smash, but that's detrimental to his character progression. So like anytime he hulks out, it's like, well, he's not moving forward, he's regressing.
Yeah.
But if you're not hulking, then what the hell are we watching? So
would almost
like for a hero, it's kind of a tough one to make a movie about. If he's a villain, then it's a
Yeah.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, and it's like, oh yeah, you want him to do that,
It almost
and then
be
at the end
interesting
you
to see
need
like
him
an
to die.
Ultimates
Yeah,
Hulk, where it's almost like an
full-on
anti-hero.
monster.
Like,
Hornier.
Is he a bad guy or a good guy? Because he seems kind of bad to me.
Oh yeah, he's pretty bad.
But you'd
in
have
the
to do that
Ultimates.
outside of the MCU.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is probably why they had a hard time using him as well.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would say the only bad thing with the success of the Marvel movies is they can't be they can't take as many risks. They can go like where you don't expect them to, like with full time travel, but they can't do anything like shocking, like Hulk's gonna Hulk out and eat somebody, because now they have way too much invested in like families watching these.
He's dabbed with
Yes.
some kids, so now you can't go back.
Yeah,
You can't undab.
he dabs and then just eats those kids at the diner.
Eats the living shit out of them.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Although, I say that, and then we got 4 or 5 Netflix shows, which blew me away how graphic they were.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Now that it's completely Disney, I'm guessing we're probably done with that that spectrum. But I was really surprised how violent, like, Daredevil and Punisher were.
Dude, because we actually just talked about season 2 a week ago, and I'm so freaking pissed that it's canceled. Like, I don't know if you guys kept up with it, but
After the Defenders, I don't think I saw anything.
sure.
I haven't
man.
either. I want to. I just haven't.
See, we're just
had time.
really big Punisher fans. So,
Yeah.
Because he was probably my gateway. Him and Spider-Man, I think, were my 2 gateways into
Which
superhero
couldn't be
stuff.
more opposite characters.
Right.
But they have a good dichotomy there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, because it's funny because like the first couple superhero movies that came out around, like I think I was in like middle school, were the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, and I think the first one I ever saw in theaters was Spider-Man 2, and that, like, literally wearing the shirt right now, but like that spawned it. And then in high school, it was seeing the Thomas Jane Punisher film, and like that was the first dip
that.
into.
I love
The Thomas Jane.
and it's
It's
so
probably
good.
the only room of 4 people that they all agree that they love the Thomas Jane Punisher movie.
Yeah,
I know.
Me and Troy always say that. Like, I
On the
can't
back.
believe how many people don't like that movie.
Really.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Was
I mean,
that
it's
movie
not
R-rated?
great, but I love it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's really
Oh, yeah.
R-rated.
Yeah.
He
What
like
about
knifes
Punisher
somebody
Warzone,
through
anyone?
their. No,
Dude.
I hate Punisher Warzone.
Just punches the dude straight through the face. Just pops like a
Punches a head off.
pinata.
Yeah.
Everyone praises Warzone for being like this fun, goofy, campy movie, and I'm like, I can't get through it.
Oh,
For
I
whatever
think it's
reason, it
terrible.
bothers me.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I enjoyed it when I first watched it, because I was like at that age where like any sort of egregious violence was just like
awesome.
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like the guys that are doing parkour and he bazookas them. And it's like, fuck you. That's
But it's just like
good.
the
Yeah.
most over the top you could interpret the Punisher being.
We're
Yeah.
literally like face, just punt, like fist to the face, and it's just like paper mache, and, like jelly.
Yeah.
Pinatas them real good.
Right.
None of that bothers me about it. Like, I love the Punisher stuff in it, other than like when he swings from a chandelier upside down. I'm like,
Oh,
as
you're
a
telling me that,
tactical
like-
genius, I don't think that would be your best mode of
They're like
killing
Boondock
them.
Saints moments.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so those bother me, but overall, like, I don't mind the crazy violent nature of it. I would love that if it was in a better movie, but the scenes that aren't Punisher related are terrible. They're
I
like
don't even remember those scenes.
they're like 90s like police procedurals with like bumbling cops, and then you have the Jigsaw villain like just chewing up scenery, like giving his speech in front of the American flag and like the Patton
I'll have to go back and watch
parody.
that.
It's like it's just so bad. Like it is
Interesting.
so cheesy, campy, but not like fun, just like bad campy.
Right.
But the action and everything's fine, and
Yeah.
it's just everything around the action is almost unwatchable.
Did you watch? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think people that love the violent parts, and then they forget
Yeah.
like all the parts.
Honestly,
in
I don't
between
remember anything
that
other
are
than
just
the
like,
violence.
oh my god, this is bad.
Yeah, definitely. Did you watch the Netflix show?
I have not. I watched. I saw him in Daredevil.
Yeah.
and I've been wanting to watch the series, but I just haven't.
I'd be very
yet.
fascinated what your guys' take is on.
I've seen the
Punisher.
first season.
The first season.
First
Okay.
season's, I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, because I finished season 2, and honestly, I think it's the best Marvel Netflix season out of all of them, hands
Really?
down. Yeah, I think just what they do, building on Frank Castle and actually having him as like, I feel like what's fun about him, why I love him, is he's this symbolism of extremism and like violence. And there's all these people around him who love to like hate on what he does and have this moral superiority of like, well, I'm not Frank Castle and I don't go around killing people. But then these different moments where people are like, holy frick, I am 2 steps from being Frank Castle. And so
Well,
they
and
kinda
also
dive
how
into that.
most of them are also willing to like point him in
Yeah.
a direction and say, "Okay, go." Like,
Yeah.
oh, so you won't do it, but you'll use me to do it.
Right.
Kind of,
And he just like leans into it and all the
Yeah.
characters kind of leaning into it. So I highly, highly recommend. But
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take. It would be kind of like, and this is not my personal belief whatsoever, but like being someone who's anti-gun and you're in a restaurant and someone comes in to rob the place and a fellow restaurant patron has a gun and stops the guy.
Yeah.
You'd be like, man, I am glad that guy had his gun on him and he could stop him. But anytime around that, I'd be like, you shouldn't be able to fucking carry a gun. Like, that's crazy. It would be that type of situation.
It kind
where
of
it's
exposes those, like, ideas.
Yeah.
And it kind of exposes our... We've done a podcast on this before, talking about, like, violence and kind of our culture's obsession with, like, punishment and violence, and, like, how he's, like, the logical extension of, like, kind of like, yeah, in that situation, I think I'd kill that person too. But, like, would you really? Or, like, it's kind of like that moral implication of, like, what would it take for you to actually, like, do this sort of thing? So, yeah, it's good. I like the first season more than the second, I think, but...
Well, you haven't finished the second season.
I haven't finished the second yet.
You gotta finish it then.
I just hate Madani as a character. I feel it's kind of like in the movie you talk about, like, there's all these scenes where it's like drama and all this stuff, and I just want to see, like, nonstop punishing.
Get to the
Like,
punishing.
I'm watching The Punisher because I want to see punishment. Like, I almost don't want to see character progression because, like, the character's supposed to just be this, like, force that will never change, and I just want to see him, like, let loose, kind of.
Yeah.
Which is maybe a poor expectation on my part.
It's a rough road to go down because I watched Luke Cage for Cages, and I was sorely disappointed. No cages whatsoever.
Dang. Good review.
Oh, gosh.
Cool. Well, we're hitting that hour mark, and we got to eat food before we do this.
And
here.
we're hitting that
Last
sweat
year. And we're
mark.
getting sweaty.
We are stinking up this room.
Sweaty. Oh, baby. Well, gentlemen, thanks for hopping on the show again. Where can people find all your stuff? I know, Troy, you mentioned 2 podcasts that you do, and you guys both do Imperius.
Boy.
Go for it.
Sure. You can hit me up personally at Troy to the Max on Twitter. I'll be more than happy to share my fishing videos
Nice.
with you on there.
Yeah, buddy.
You can also check out my podcast with my wife. It's Charm Type, and we're at Charm Type Pod on Twitter. And then you can find me with my buddy JT at Review Pod on Twitter. Find all those things, and of course, you can find me with Dave here in this room.
That's right. Only this room. One night engagement.
Oh, no.
No, we're at Imperius Rex, or at Imperius Rex on Twitter. Or is it Imperius Rex Show? It might be that.
It's the show one.
Just type in Imperius Rex. You'll find us somewhere there. And, our YouTube channel's Imperius Rex, too. So
Cool.
that's it.
Sweet. I'll give kind of a condensed version. We're on basically every streaming platform.
Whatever
you could ever
platform
wish.
you like, yeah.
Whatever platform you like.
Including YouTube.
Including YouTube. You can send us any suggestions on Twitter, Instagram, or at popculturepunks@gmail.com. And that's pretty much the gist. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one talking John Wick.
Oh,
the whole
I
franchise.
think John Wick 1, 2, and 3.
Parabellum.
Oh, boy.
Parabellum.
Lordy.
Good movies.
Yeah. I binged all 3 of them within the span of 48 hours.
Oh, man, and you're still
And I
standing.
don't regret it.
And that's a fascinating thing, and I'm excited to hear about that because
Yeah.
we've done that before with stuff, and we were
And
like,
I was burnt
end
out.
me. I
But
can't
John
do
Wick,
it.
I was like, man, all right, I'm getting a ticket for Tuesday night, and I'm going to see the 3rd one.
Don't
buddy.
all the John Wick movies take place in like 48 hours, though?
I think I
it's like a
watched it
week.
within the
It's
span
okay.
of... I think I
very,
wa-
very short span.
Okay.
I almost watched it in conjunction with the timeline.
Probably. Yeah, definitely. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out Imperius and all their sweet digs on YouTube and the socials, and we'll catch you all in the next one, and we bid you a fond cowabunga. Woo!
Voices in my heart tell me to throw it all away, to toss it in the wind and forget yesterday. But the crowd comes singing back with that same old song. You've got bills you gotta pay. What about job security? But I've been dreaming about packing it all up, 'cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the walls start closing in, and everyone you love tells you it's all just in your head? And I wanna burn out in a brilliant burning place. Don't wanna be stifled by the dry rot or the haze. I'm not giving up, I just don't have the time to waste all my days rewriting all these lies. I'm not giving up, I gets loud.